welcome to the Terrillian Podcast, set deep in the mind of the creator, where we discuss a comprehensive analysis of the planet known as Terrillian. Episode 1, we lost the plot. I am Beard, and I am the resident nerd who happens to like stories a whole heck of a lot. And I am here today with the creator of today's story and the name of this podcast, Terrillian.
That's me, Ian.
Succinct.
Yeah. That's my thing. I like to write the stories, and been working on this one for a while. And I'm here with my brother-in-law Chris, who's kind of the
Swift leading.
Oh yeah, sorry. He prefers to be by his stage name. I mean his name there, Swift leading.
Or SL for short.
Or
nice,
SL.
Nice, yeah. And so I'm the music producer and media manager. So we're all coming together. We're gonna do our first podcast. This is pretty exciting. So thank you all to all the listeners here today. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So Ian, what is Terrillian?
So Terrillian is a story that I've been workshopping for a little more than a decade. Pretty much started when I was in elementary and kind of progressed from there. The idea was to make a video game out of it, so the whole storyboard arced around the idea that your character would make a series of choices affecting the outcome of the first game. Since then, it's really just progressed into a much bigger world than I thought it ever could be. And that's kind of what we wanted to go ahead and show, you listeners who will be listening and whatnot, kind of the story, and hopefully in time create something out of that.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Beard, I'm going to pivot to you on that too. What is Terrillian? I know you've had a lot of conversations with Ian. You've helped him, of course, trying to build all this and put a lot of this together. Could you answer that question as well?
No, not really.
Oh, no.
No, it's fun. Terrillian, for sake of brevity, because Terrillian is not just one thing, it is an absolutely massive brainchild of Ian here. And the first time he essentially read me in on it, I think we talked for 3 hours, and he just slowly walked me through the gist of the story, and I instantly fell in love with it because it has all the elements that I love in stories of, like, you have this unfolding mystery. It has an element that I love about games, which is the ability to choose, like any classic RPG that's out there, is that the choices that you make affect the story as it evolves. So at its core, like, to me, Terrillian is one of those ultimate stories. It's new. It's not a rehash of something that has already been made. It is his brainchild that takes elements from other things that we both love a lot and melts it into its own thing. And Terrillian, basically, to me, is the one of the best stories that could be told ultimately in the best medium, in my opinion, which is video games.
Right on. All right, so back to Ian. So you've kind of mentioned it, you've hinted a little bit on it, but in your opinion, what's the point of creating all this? Why are we doing this massive effort?
Golly, so really what we're working with is the typical story of, good versus evil, but I also wanted to leave a lot of gray in that. I didn't want to just have it be the simple black and white cookie cutter version. I wanted to give it a lot of choices that would affect the player in the way that you'd be like, you make a decision or you make a choice, and there wouldn't be just a clear, yes, you made the right answer, or no, this was the wrong answer. It would purely be on the player as far as like what they genuinely thought at that point was the best answer. Now, depending on how you play, of course, some players like to play as a villain, some people like to play as the hero. And I wanted to be able to give that as an option to where you really can immerse yourself in the character itself and actually play a story that you created, but you're playing that story in my world. So really everything that you do as far as the player dictates how this story would unfold, and ultimately allow you to really hash out your own story, but within the confines of my world.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that excited me too when we were in the early stages of talking about this. Well, when I was in the earliest stages of talking about this with you, you'd already been doing it for like 10 years at that point. Is the idea that you do have choices, and it's not like, just for an example, like the first Knights of the Old Republic game, if you made a good choice, you would get the good ending. But the way that you were telling me how this was going to work, you could make that good choice, but with the law of unintended consequences and other people being involved in the story, your good choice might not actually end in a good solution. That's not necessarily to say that it's real nihilistic, but it's not black and white, like you said. And that really excited me.
Yeah, I like that too. From hearing what y'all say, from me, I think a lot of this is inspiration. So I was part of like a music producer, media manager. Ian's brought me on board, and I've been able to write some music, actual notation, and it really inspired me because it's very opening. There's a lot of different themes. There's a lot of different ideas that come in with every one of his drawings, and we'll get more into that later on. But Ian has tons and tons of epic, awesome drawings, a lot filled with adventure, filled with storylines. So I got on board because when I started seeing all that, I saw the purpose behind it, the motivation, the inspiration, all of that. So that just from my perspective, I really am motivated and inspired by all this work. So I'm really excited to start, bringing this forward. So that leads me to our final question then. So back to Ian. What is your end goal with Terrillian?
My end goal with Terrillian is to make this world. It's to create something that is going to be unique to the players, out there who've played other games. I want to create something that's going to shake the pattern. There's always that one game out there that changes the generations that follow after it as far as gameplay and styles go. I mean, we had Mario Brothers way back when, and then we had the Bethesda Game Studios when they presented Morrowind and that free roam RPG style. My goal is to be the next, I guess you can say, change in that whole media. I would like to stamp on that and become the next thing that influenced a whole new series of games. As far as storytelling goes, I want to be able to create something that's going to, well, for one, be unique, but I want to create it to where people actually, it influences them. For me, like I can vouch for Star Wars. Star Wars was one of those movies that really influenced me, and a lot of the games influenced me. Lord of the Rings being a major one, J.J.R. Tolkien. Still watch a stupid amount of Lord of the Rings to this day, and I am rather obsessed with the videos that come from that. But at the end of the day, my goal is to create something that basically is a tribute to that in a way where I create a game that hopefully inspires someone the same way those stories inspired me. But that's kind of my goal there.
Right on. That sounds great. Beard, what about you? What's your involvement in all this, and what do you want to get out of this? What is your goal?
My end goal ultimately is to see Ian succeed in the creation of Terrillian. Well, I don't know necessarily what my involvement in all that will be, but if I can help him and y'all by any means tell the best daggum story that y'all can tell, that's what excites me the most. Is just telling a good story. And like I said earlier, is like a story where you, the player, has input in how the story unfolds is one of the most exciting things for me to see. I've always loved that element of choice within a story and seeing how it unfolds, and then going back and playing through it again, making different choices, and to see how things unfold and twist. And this Terrillian is that to me, and I just want to make sure that Ian and Terrillian both succeed.
And just to kind of make another point to you, Chris, or sorry, Swift Leading.
Yes.
Correction.
SL.
Please correct yourself.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Stage name, Swift Leading. What is your end goal in all of this?
My end goal? Well, when I think about it, I've written pieces for Terrillian. You can check out our website, which we'll be sharing, of course, but we've got our website at terrilliangaming.com. We've already got some awesome music pieces on there. We've got some awesome artwork on there, some storylines, some great story stuff that y'all should definitely check out. But for me, I want to actually create an end-to-end soundtrack that has multiple themes that overlap, and just like a movie producer where you got an original soundtrack, I want to create something like that for this game. Something that is unique, that is tangible, something that we can say is ours that we have completed, and I want it to best support Ian's artwork in gaming. And that way, overall, it'll produce one of the best video game experiences, not just for us, because we're obviously going to play this game, but for other people, right? Other people that are going to see this artwork, get inspired, be able to create amazing things. And I know there's going to be a lot of good coming out of all this. So I'm pretty excited for next, what all is up and coming.
What is next? So y'all have, Ian has spent years creating this story and creating artwork. And y'all are starting this podcast so y'all can hopefully find other people that are interested in it. But what is next? What is following this? Do y'all have a plan? Is it figuring it out as you go along? What do y'all envision? What do y'all see?
As far as the podcast goes, or as far as the game?
Between getting right now tonight to a finalized, completed game, what do y'all see y'all's next step being?
I just want to get a lot of content out there, as much as we can get out there.
I just want to make the stories. Well, actually, I would say more develop the stories, because they're pretty much already set up. But
you got a lot of drawings. We just have to match the drawings to the stories, put it out there, put some music on there, link it all up together, right?
Pretty much, yeah. We have all the beads. We just need the thread at this point.
Cool. And Beard's been helping. Hasn't he been helping to organize a bunch of the drawings and
flush out the concepts,
documents, and everything else?
Well, when you've been working on a game as long as I've been working on this, you have stuff that essentially starts to go to the point where it's almost considered almost outdated in its design. So you have to go backwards a little bit and kind of, sweep it up and re-put it back together and make it match and kind of uniform it with the rest of the world that you're working on, especially when you're making one world and it's not a series of different things. So you do always have that fun part where you're getting to go backwards and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this story, and you get to rehash it out. And Beard definitely really helps me when it comes to pulling up old concepts and revisiting old concepts and getting them kind of more canonized with the main storyline. But that's pretty much the gist of that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for myself, the next step, since we are doing this podcast, would be to continue with this podcast to paint the picture of what Terrillian is in such a way that it would hopefully capture someone's attention, and they'd be like, hey, I really like that, and I would like to help y'all make that, so that way we can actually bring in people that would be willing to help make this a dream. And I'm hoping via this podcast, we can capture that imagination the way that Ian captured my imagination that first night that he told me about Terrillian. So that's my hope with the next step.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably a solid point. Growing a team of people who are equally invested in this dream, this idea, would be kind of the best step forward, which is kind of, this is two parts, using the podcast idea to kind of, one, grow interest and grow awareness of what we're trying to do here, but also to search out people who think they could be an asset and who actually want to contribute to something. If there's ever anyone out there who listens to this podcast, please hit me up if you have good ideas, concepts that you would like to see executed, or if you have skill sets that might be able to attribute to this, that would be great.
With that, we will draw to a close. We do appreciate all of you who have listened to our comprehensive discussion of the planet known as Terrillian. We entice you to listen and learn, following along with each podcast, so that you will visualize the vivid and vast world of Terrillian. A tragic tale set forth for the main protagonist, where you as the gamer will play to conquer lands and legends, thus creating a lore of your own. In doing so, we hope to gain your favor to turn these stories into a video game. If you want to see more content, check out our website at terrilliangaming.com. For more episodes, find us on Spotify and YouTube. Support our emergence.